everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy, and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we're reading pages 81 to 100. As I said before, I'm kind of on the fritz of this book so far. I'm on page 81. There is a total of 227. So today we'll be at the halfway point of the entire book. And that's worrisome because, girlfriend, I don't know where this book is going. You know what I mean, girlfriend? Play. Anyway, oh, actually, hold on. I have a perfect one for that. You know what I mean? Play. It does a little blink. Play. Alright. Okay. Back to seriousness. Without further ado, because I got my Slay Queen on, let's begin. I got a promotion today, Sergio said. The one I told you I applied for. I got it. Head of the company? Tony asked, laughing again. Tony, be nice, Sergio's mother said. Congratulations, Sergio. We're so proud of you. We need to have a celebration. Your favorite pasta and cake? We have to have cake. What was the job you applied for again? Project manager. That sounds nice, his mother said. Tony snorted. Don't rest on your laurels, Sergio. Always upward. Did you catch the game last night? Sergio noticed he was gritting his teeth. He forced himself to relax. I saw the score. I missed the game because we all went to dinner to celebrate my promotion. Did you meet anyone? Sergio's mother asked. No, Mama. I was just the people in my department. Violet was the only woman there who's interested in me. They got no taste, Tony said. At least Violet knows a good thing when she sees it. Sergio's mother snorted. She wasn't Violet's biggest fan. Sergio made his excuses to get off the phone as fast as he could. He was asking himself why he called his parents to begin with. Well, he knew why he called them. He called them to get validation. He was trying to feel like he'd finally gotten enough to have arrived. Why in the world he'd think he'd be the validation of his father? All the rich food he ate the night before must have slowed down his brain function. Sergio's new office was outstanding. His new job was not. The office wasn't huge. It wasn't a corner office or anything. Honestly, it was just a small plain room tucked between a break room and a conference room. But it was his, plus his windows and shade, which for some reason were missing from the windows out of the design floor. Sergio happily pulled those shades down when the sun came around to spear his eyes at 2 in the afternoon. The shade pulling moment was, however, the only happy moment of his day. The rest of the day was just a mind-numbing blur as he tried to get up to speed with what Sanders had been doing, or rather, had he not been doing. After just 2 hours of assessing the situation, he understood why Sanders had left earlier than expected. This was not a job for one person. It was a job for at least 10 people, plus assistants. Clive was right. Sergio was an idiot. He wasn't told what his pay raise would be before he applied for promotion, but he figured it would be a decent increase. But that he was wrong. He was only going to get another $1,000 a month to do 10 times more work. Idiot, he muttered to himself, as he tried to organize a few tasks he thought he might be able to get done today, if he stayed until early midnight. Sergio's door opened and Clive's head popped in, along with the aromas wafting over the break room. Sergio could smell coffee, popcorn, and someone's microwave burritos. How's the new job? Clive asked. Sergio's dropped his head in a new pile of paperwork in front of him and pounded it a couple times. That good, huh? Clive came the rest of the way into the room and sat in one of the narrow leather and stainless steel chairs in front of Sergio. He looked around at Sergio's plain oak desk, and other chairs, the shelves piled with project files, drafting table tucked in the corner. So you do have a drafting table, Clive noted. Think you'll get to use it? Sergio didn't answer the question. Instead, he asked, Do you ever think we reach our ideals? The guy turned it sideways and put his feet up on the other chair in front of his desk. That's a deep question. Sorry, I know to hate to use your dozen or so brain cells you think about deep discussions. Yeah, you're stressing me out here. Never mind. No, it's a good question. Honest answer? I don't think ideals are actually real. I think they exist only in our heads. Have you ever drawn something that was as good as you imagined in your head? If you have, I'll buy you dinner every night for a week, because I sure haven't. As tempting as it is to lie to get those dinners, Sergio said, grinning. No, I haven't. There you go. They're all a bunch of donkeys. What? You know, a carrot on a stick. We're just a bunch of donkeys plodding along and trying to reach the carrot that will forever dangle on in front of us, no matter how far we plod. That's depressing. Clive shrugged and shook his head, doing an unintentional impression of Bubbles the Labradoodle. Then my work is done, he grinned. Seriously, I don't think it's depressing at all. It's kind of freeing when you think about it. If we ever can't get whatever we want, why bother trying? Just do your best and have a good time. He paused and saluted. You, Mr. Idiot, sir? He bowed multiple times as he backed out of Sergio's office. Sergio laughed and sobered and tried to concentrate on work. 2.5 weeks into the new position, Sergio had doubled his caffeine consumption, and still he was constantly 10 paces behind. He had already made 2 dumb mistakes that cost the firm several thousands of dollars, and he had already been berated twice by a client. Dale assured him that it was a normal part of the learning curve for the project manager job, but Sergio was still mortified. He was also bored and disappointed. He thought that becoming the project manager would give him more leeway to implement cutting-edge design ideas, more freedom to break past the boundaries of the usual renovations his department did. For some time, he was frustrated by the safe, limited changes for the clients they made to their homes. He wanted to be given carte blanche to bust into a place, demo the heck out of it, and turn it into something else entirely. He thought project manager would hold enough sway and he'd make a vision a reality. He was wrong. The projects he'd been overseeing were the same old things, and now in addition to disliking the types of jobs he was working on, he had the responsibility for more aspects of those jobs. It was a new position, really, just more work and no more satisfaction. Not only was the work in a full suck mode, but his home life, such as it was, had gone down the toilet as well. Miss Bailey was taken to staying up late so she could greet him with her latest suggestions for getting more sleep. Then there was the tenant who lived above him, the woman who had been apartment on the next floor up taking dancing lessons. He'd been listening to her stomping around above his head for weeks. Didn't know her name, but he'd given her the title of Thunderfeet now. For some reason, Thunderfeet was practicing until 2 a.m. He tried to talk to her about it one night, but after scolding him for ringing her doorbell so late, he called him names that made him blush. Also, because he never had time to go into a grocery store, he was eating more takeout, and because he was tired when he got home, he rarely exercised and instead just dropped into bed. These 2 changes had resulted in a disturbing potbelly that was growing on each passing day. Sergio's dissatisfaction was growing with each passing day as too, though were the number of hours he was working. It was near midnight those nights, and he left the firm. He always came home with a stack of work to look over before he went to bed. As if all this wasn't bad enough, Violet hated Sergio's new long hours even more than he did, and it was turning her into a nag. How come you have to work all the time, Sergio? She asked him on a Saturday night, at the end of his first week of project manager. They were at a party she insisted on attending, even though they couldn't get there until after 10:30 p.m., because he worked until then. He knew she was going to want to stay until at least 2 or later, and then he was going to have to get up and go into work early, Sunday morning. If he didn't, there was no way he could handle Monday. It's just part of the new job, Sergio said with a thick layer of sarcasm. The job I just promoted into, it's a high workload job. What do you suggest I do? Get a saw and cut the workload in half? He never should have said that. Violet laughed hysterically, and everyone in the party turned to stare at them. So it went. Work, try to please his girlfriend, get home late, deal with Miss Bailey, eat junk, listen to Thunderfeet, finally go to sleep, rinse and repeat. This was days basically drudgery. The only few minutes in him that he actually liked were the moments when he walked out of the building, imagined his dedicated project manager's parking lot. Now there was a perk worth working your tail off for. Not. Strolled into it and got in his car. It was a fleeting moment of freedom. Every night he got a few seconds of joy and the feeling of escape. But then, as he reached beyond the reach of his tiny, rainy Tuesday night, because the forecast had been the usual sunshine, Sergio wasn't prepared for rain. Even though his parking spot was only 20 feet from the firm's door, he and his stack of papers were soaked when he got into his SUV, and then he was cold, and he was hungry. Sergio put his papers in the passenger seat. He turned on the heat full blast, which caused his vehicle to steam up, and his wool suit started smelling like a wet farm animal. Or, what was his own smell? He didn't know. Personal hygiene was another thing of his job was taken from him. Pulling out of his parking lot, Sergio couldn't help but notice he rode mostly to himself. It was not like every night of this week, which is why it was not just annoying but screamingly inconvenient when 2-year-old SUV decided to die and totally closed down a deserted retail district of downtown. Sergio was barely able to coast to the curb before the SUV lost all momentum and drifted to a full silent stop. Sergio looked at the full bright dashboard lights, not the battery. He looked at the gas tank. It was half full, not out of gas. Are you kidding me? Sergio asked the vehicle. It had no response. He tried to restart the SUV. Nothing. There was no point in him looking under the hood. He knew nothing about vehicle engines. So Sergio sat in the dead SUV and listened to the rain thumping on the roof. He tried to see through the gray murk and falling water. Everything outside the SUV was vague and obscure, but from what he could tell, no one was around. He peered into the gloom, looking at the open sign in the front of the storefront. He didn't see any. His block had no bars or restaurants, and so nothing was open. He thought about where he was, and he remembered that there was a gas station 2 blocks over. Hopefully, he could get a tow truck there. But the meant walking in the rain for 10 minutes. Oh, joy! Sergio had leaned his head to the steering wheel. What a perfectly awful end to a perfectly awful week. Sergio raised his head and looked at the still wet stack of papers sitting on the passenger seat. He had the urge to pick them up and throw them out into the rain. He could see himself doing it in his mind's eye, but he could see himself dancing around on top of them. Blowing out air, Sergio motioned at his dead car and said, "Camel's back. Meet your last straw." The rain started coming down harder. Sergio leaned back in the seat and closed his eyes. Now had he gotten there? After all his hard work, all his striving, all his determination, after all that comes this? A broken down SUV in the middle of the night in the pouring rain? Fine! Sergio opened the door and stepped out into the weather. He was soaked immediately. He slammed his SUV's driver's door, stomped forward 2 feet, and kicked the front tire as hard as he could. Ouch! Sergio screamed. He hopped around on one foot and marveled at how much pain a toe could generate. Water slid down the inside of his collar. His hopping foot splashed water up his pant leg. Resisting the urge to kick this vehicle again, Sergio stomped away from it. As he pulled his ruined suit jacket up for his head and makeshift hood, he sloshed over the sidewalk. There, he put his head down and trudged away. The street lights provided enough illumination for him to see the sidewalk cracks and curb. This was all he needed for navigation. He'd gone just a block when the rain started to let up. Not really caring about the point because he was already wet enough and thorough. Sergio kept walking, but then two things happened at once. The rain stopped entirely, and Sergio nearly tripped over the overstuffed green garbage bag lying in the middle of the sidewalk. Sergio lowered his suit coat. He looked around. Near street light poured pale yellow light down the dumpster, and it tipped part way over. Contents were spilled all over the sidewalk. Partially eating food, sodding papers, collapsed latte, cups were strewn all around. Sergio began taking careful steps to the trash. He'd gone a couple of feet when the streetlights glowed to hit something brightly colored. Sergio assumed it was a plastic bowl or cup, and even so he glanced as he passed. He stopped. It wasn't a plastic bowl or cup. It was... what was it? Curious in the unique shape, standing among the ordinary refuge, Sergio took a step closer to it. It was a bright red propeller on the top of a cap. Leaning over, Sergio discovered the propeller cap was attached to a round, small head of a small, maybe 10-inch high plastic figurine. The figurine was that of a small boy with reddish-brown hair, big blue eyes and an orange triangular nose, rosy cheeks, and a wide mouth full of protruded white teeth. The figurine's round head had matched the shape and size of the trunk of its body, which resembled a colorful bowling ball with arms and legs. The figurine was short-sleeved, two-button shirt, the vertical red and blue stripes matching the pattern on the cap. The shirt was tucked into a solid blue pants, and the pants cuffs ended at the top of a pair of plain brown shoes. The shoes were more rounded than a foot shape, but they matched the boy's fingerless, stumpy hands. Both hands were occupied. Figurine's right hand held a large red and yellow striped balloon, and the figurine's right hand smelled a small sign that read, "I'm a lucky boy." "You are you?" Sergio playfully asked the figurine. "Do you have any tips how I could use some luck?" "I'm a lucky boy," the figurine said in a high-pitched child's voice. Sergio widened his eyes and stared. This wasn't just a figurine, it was an electronic toy. Surprised the toy was still working despite the sitting in the rain, he was intrigued enough to pick it up. Wet, cold, and hard, and slippery, the toy was lightweight. And though it looked old-fashioned, it wasn't in great condition. No paint was scarred or faded. Sergio turned the toy this way and that, looking for a control switch. He couldn't see one. He checked for a speaker and saw none. He even scanned for a battery compartment, but found nada. So interesting. So was "I'm a lucky boy" all the toy said? Just for fun, Sergio decided to talk to the toy. "You say you're a lucky boy, like your sign says. Good for you. Good for you," the toy said. Oh, okay, it probably had some stock phrases to play, and it would program to repeat back what it's heard. That is, recorded. Its inner workings were surprisingly well hidden. It didn't seem like a cheap toy. Sergio decided to test his theory about the working recording. He said, "Testing, testing." The little toy didn't repeat the words. Instead, it said, "It's lucky to be lucky." Then it emitted a funny little ha 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 hee hee giggle. Sergio smiled. The giggle was infectious. Sergio looked around. Well, he was still alone. He looked back at the toy and shrugged. "Do you have a name?" Sergio asked. "My name is Lucky Boy," the toy said. Sergio snorted. "I never should have guessed." Sergio wondered if Lucky Boy was worth anything. Probably not. But either way, he found he wouldn't leave it lying here. It was unique. It looked antique. He loved unique antiques. It made him part of his home decor. Tucking the toy under his arm, Sergio walked along, and within 5 minutes he was in the gas station convenience store making arrangements to have his car towed. While he signed paperwork, he set Lucky Boy on the counter. Teenage clerk behind the counter called the tow truck driver and then returned to the counter and watched Sergio sign papers. The teen was acne spotted and limp-haired. He was well-dressed in clean blue uniform shirt with khaki pants. He was friendly enough. "Sorry your car broke down, dude," he said. "Hey, do you want to buy a lottery ticket for tomorrow's drawing? Could help pay for the car repairs." "No thanks," Sergio said. He was trying not to breathe deeply because the gas station's convenience store smelled like pork rinds and dirty socks. But he involuntarily sucked in the air when Lucky Boy said in a soprano toned child's voice, "It's your lucky day." "Hey, dude," the teen said. "Cool doll." Not a doll. Okay, whatever. Still cool. Sergio looked at Lucky Boy and shrugged. Okay, I'll take a ticket after all. Who knows? Exactly, the Kirk beamed, and he rang up a ticket. It was nearly 3 a.m. when the tow truck driver dropped Sergio off at his apartment building. Sergio didn't bother explaining Lucky Boy to the heaviest set driver, who eyed the toy, and Sergio, with suspicion, tiptoeing through the hallway outside of his apartment. He managed to open and close the door without being pestered. He seen there was an hour past which Miss Bailey would not stay up. He looked at the toy and still carried on. Maybe it's my lucky day after all. Lucky Boy emitted his mischievous smile. Smiling, Sergio took Lucky Boy into the bedroom, and he set him on top of a cherry bureau next to the ceramic tray. When he emptied his soggy pockets, stripped off his ruined clothes, took a hot shower, and fell into bed. 2.5 hours later, his alarm nearly catapulted him across the room. Groaning, Sergio sleepwalked through the being dressed. Then he called a cab. Any wise words? Sergio asked Lucky Boy before he left the apartment. Lucky Boy giggled and said, "Today's your lucky day." Sergio gonna say he agreed with that assessment, but technically the day was still ongoing. Who knows what could happen? Running on just 2.5 hours of sleep, he sure could use a little luck. The day went by in a sleep-deprived blur. He was a walking zombie. Then Dale corrected him on his math in the 10th time, the last time being with Sergio about 6 and 7, and added 6 and 7 and came up with 15. And finally admitted, "Dale, I'm sorry, I'm asleep on my feet. My SUV broke down in the rain last night. I got 2.5 hours of sleep." "Go home," Dale said. Sergio flinched. Was he being fired? Dale laughed. "You're not being punished. We're not total ogres here. When you need sleep, you need sleep. Go home and sleep. When you come back, maybe you could tell me again what 6 plus 7 is." When Sergio left Violet know he was leaving, she offered to lend him her car. "I can't get someone to take me to your place, let her to get it. Then we can go out to that gallery opening I wanted us to go to. You'll be rested up enough by the end of the day, right?" Sergio started to nod, then he stopped himself. He didn't want to go to the gallery opening. If this was his lucky day, he didn't deserve to be told the truth for a change. He shook his head and refused to accept the car keys. Violet was thrusting in his direction. "I'm just going to call a cab," he said. "Then I'm going to go to bed and sleep straight into the morning. I don't want to go out later." Violet gave him a little pout, as she used to think was kind of cute. He turned away from her and headed back to the office to call a cab. On his way home in the cab, Sergio heard the news report about the big lottery, something about one of the winners buying a winning ticket at the gas station downtown. He wondered if the gas station he went to previous night, then he checked his ticket. By the time Sergio returned home, though, he was in a semi-conscious state. He didn't have enough energy to check the lottery ticket. Instead, he fell into bed and slept for 4 hours. He woke up a little after 8 p.m., and feeling not a little guilty about his latest lie to Violet, he ordered a pepperoni pizza. Taking it into his bed because he was still too tired to think, Sergio turned on the TV and local news was spending. Perky female concierge said, "And to end on a light note, 5 people drew the winning numbers for the last night's biggest big jackpot. And one of the tickets was brought right here in our town. Congratulations to the winner, whoever you are." That's right, the ticket. Sergio jumped out of bed. He dashed to the ceramic tray and dug out the ticket. Grabbing it, he picked up the phone, bringing up the winning numbers on the screen. He compared them to the numbers on his ticket. He blinked, compared them again. They matched! Every number matched! Sergio jumped up and shouted, "Yes!" Above him, Thunderfeet pounded on the floor. "Same to you," he shouted. Sergio ran to the bureau and picked up Lucky Boy. He held up the toy of the dance partner and spun around the room. "You're brilliant! Absolutely brilliant!" Lucky Boy sounded off his funny little giggle. Sergio mimicked the giggle and threw himself on the bed. He kicked his feet in the air and whooped. Thunderfeet pounded again. "So the hell with you," he shouted. Then he was going to put it up with crap anymore. He had the means to fix all the problems he had in his life now. Oh yeah, things were going to change. Next day, Sergio called in sick to work. Then Violet telephoned to check on him, but he had let the answering machine pick up. When he visited the lottery headquarters to claim his winnings, because he was one of 5 people who had winning numbers after taxes, he ended up with just a little over $600,000. That was okay, but still plenty. Back at home, Sergio relaxed in his living room and pondered what to do next. He had so many choices now. The car repair place had just called to tell him that he had an oil leak and bled the vehicle dry of oil. The resulting engine damage would cost thousands to repair. Should he spend it, or just sell the thing and just get for parts and get something new? Grinning, Sergio went to the next Lucky Boy, tearing out the toy back into the living room. Feeling only a little silly, he asked Lucky Boy, "Should I repair my car or get a new one?" "You deserve good things," Lucky Boy sang out. "You're right, I do." Sergio sat back and put Lucky Boy in his lap. "What kind of car do I deserve?" "You deserve to have your dreams come true." "Really?" Sergio thought about his dream car. The car he'd always wanted, a car that his father had once called an impractical waste of money. From the man who had 17 cars. Wasn't having more than 2 or 3 cars an impractical waste of money? "You don't buy cars for flash, son," Tony always said, you buy them for value. You buy Flash and you're just asking to be ripped off. You pay more than the car's worth, and you'll be the magnet for car thieves. What if I like Flash? Sergio asked out loud now. You deserve Flash, Lucky Boy piped up. What should I buy? Sergio asked. Buy a flashy sports car. The more expensive, the better. Sergio fired off a finger gun at the little toy. I like how you think. He ignored the part of him that was smidgen creeped out by the fact that he was having a conversation with a toy. Lucky Boy had given him better advice than he'd ever gotten from anyone else. Who was he to care about where that advice came from? So he bought the bright red, expensive, flashy sports car. High-end, highly visible, and impressive all to get out. Sergio's new car made him feel way more impressive than the silly aviator-style watch. And speaking of his watch, what kind of watch should I buy, he asked Lucky Boy, with his new car. You deserve bling! Sergio got dressed and headed back out in his flashy car. He went to the best jewelry store in town and he spent $37,000 on a new gold watch, which was impressive. After he got the watch, he stopped and called Violet. She just got home from work. How would you like to have dinner at the Horizon, he asked, grinning as she sucked in her breath. The Horizon was the best restaurant in town. Violet squealed. What's the occasion? I'd tell you when I pick you up. Meet me out front of your building. I thought your SUV was still in the shop, she said. It is. I bought myself a new ride. It's red. You can't miss it. Okay, Violet said, drawing out the word as she lost all of her marbles. He laughed and hung up, driving Violet's apartment building and revving the engine as he neared their building. He stomped the accelerator to zoom forward, then slammed on the brakes, coming to a screeching stop next to the curb just a foot from her. She stared in open-mouthed shock at the new wheels. What do you think? He asked, and the powerful engine rumbled and she gasped at the car. How? Violet asked. Project managers don't make that much more than senior architects. Get in and I'll tell you about it. Violet beamed at him and she opened the door. Over the steak and lobster dinner, complete with a huge slice of the most decadent chocolate cake he'd ever eaten, Sergio told Violet about his lottery win. He didn't, however, tell her about Lucky Boy. That somehow remained a secret he needed to keep for himself. And he should have kept the lottery win to himself, too. Violet immediately started telling him how he should spend the money. You should buy a boat, he told him, she plowed through a slice of cake. We should go out on the lake every weekend. Oh, you should buy a timeshare. Then we could go to different places every weekend. Or maybe we could just take a trip around the world. Oh, wait, a cruise. We should take a cruise. Or we could go. Sergio wasn't really listening to her. He was savoring the amazing chocolate cake, but he said at the appropriate intervals, until he noticed she wasn't talking anymore. He also noticed she whacked his knuckles with her fork. Ow, what? I said, what is that? She gestured to his new watch. Oh, yeah, Sergio suddenly remembered. I forgot to show you this to you. I got it this afternoon. It cost $37,000, but I deserve it. Sergio took another bite of cake. Violet touched the watch irrelevantly and beamed. She looked at him, her eyes bright. What did you get me? I was wondering all evening. I figured you'd have got me something since you won all that money. I figured you're saving it at the end of dinner, but now I can't wait any longer. What'd you get me? Sergio set down the fork. He looked down. What? What? Violet asked him. You did get me something, right? Sergio winced. You got yourself a new sports car and a $37,000 watch, and you didn't get me anything? Violet's voice rose at least an octave at the end of the question. I think, he told himself. Surely he had come up with some good version. He didn't buy her anything. Violet stood and threw down her napkin. Take me home right now. Sergio didn't argue. He didn't have the energy, and he realized he didn't care that she was angry. He just took her home. There, Violet got out of the car and started to walk away. Then she turned back and said, You better have something for me tomorrow. She munched off, her hips swaying empathetically in her weight. Sergio didn't give Violet a thought after he left her apartment building. He was feeling too good to be bothered by her tantrum. Then she got home. Sergio showed his watch to Lucky Boy. What do you think? He said. Lucky Boy giggled. You look impressive. Well, I'm gonna tell you this. Now that we're episode 2 of... Well, hold on. You guys can come with me and check. Since today we read pages 81 to 100 of this story, and we are now episode 2 of 4, so halfway there, of this story, I'm gonna say the truth. I'm a little worried. Because, well, you know, when... I've seen it time and time again, where stories don't really like to change. And when a story has a hurting start, that's understandable. There's a lot of stories that I love, that I'm in love with, that have a difficult start. One of the ones I know for a fact is Red Rising by Matt. I want to say it's Matt, but I'm definitely wrong. Oh, Neil something. Anyways, And that I had a hard start, but I read the entire series and it was fantastic. So sometimes there's a nice change. But from the first story of the Gumdrop Angel and now to Sergio's Lucky Day, I'm just getting this feeling. So you're telling me the way that this is a FNAF story is he picked up a he picked up a Balloon Boy toy. I'm sorry, Lucky Boy toy, and is now gonna. Let me guess. He's going to have all the luck in the world. He's gonna lose everything around him. He's gonna become this egotistical jerk, and it's gonna end up costing him in the end, where he probably, I don't know, dies somehow in some way that we can't predict because it's not gonna be foreshadowed, or if it is, it's just gonna be very slight. I don't know. You know, that actually no, I do know. This sounds like a very familiar story. As a matter of fact, it sounds like from the first book of the story of the girl who picks up. I'm sorry, not the first book. Hold on, I have the whole series behind me. Let me go look. Um, uh, oh man, it's called "To Be Beautiful." It's from one of the first four. It sounds exactly like that. It sounds like it's gonna be exactly that again. And I'm pretty sure that's also written by Adria Wagner. So, you know, I'm obviously a little worried. But anywho, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Next time we'll be reading pages 101 to 120. So, about the same time. Super fantastic, wonderful day, y'all. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.